Hello, and welcome to this holiday edition of What is Jessica Reading Now? I am Jessica, a library clerk and youth services specialist here at the Macedon Public Library, also a self-proclaimed bibliophile who reads a lot of books every year, as you can imagine. And so I decided this year to compile a list of holiday recommendations. So not just Christmas recommendations, but also holiday season, winter season sort of recommendations. Normally I focus on young adult fiction. Today I'm actually going to focus on a variety. So I'm going to start with a couple of children's recommendations, some young adult recommendations, some adult fiction, as well as a nonfiction recommendation. So I'm going to start with, excuse me, my favorite books to read this time of year to the to children, as well as some of my favorites when I was a kid. I also do the toddler and preschool story times here. So these are two that we've actually covered this year. The first one is one that was a big hit, which is The Mitten by Jane Brett. This was both written and illustrated by Jane Brett. So I remember this book very fondly from my own childhood. I remember it mostly for the absolute beautiful illustrations and imagery. It's a very lovely story about a boy named Nicky who wants his grandmother to knit him some white mittens. And she says, you know, you might lose them in the snow. And he insists that he wants white mittens. So she makes them for him and tells him, you know, when you come back, the first thing I'm going to check is that you're okay. The second thing I'm going to do is check that you have both your mittens. So as you can probably tell from the picture here, one of the mittens gets lost and it gets found by some animals seeking shelter. And it's just one of those really cute stories that kind of builds on itself, and kids really like the sort of subtle silliness to it. But also what I like is that the illustrations, while also absolutely gorgeous, there's the center picture of what's going on, but then on the sides here, you have little stories going on as well. You see the boy Nicky playing in the snow. And then on this side, you see the next animal that's going to come and find this lost mitten. So it's just a very memorable, very beautiful book. And it's a great book to read during the winter time. There is no holiday theme attached to it. It's just more about the cold weather and the winter. And I believe the story is actually based on a Ukrainian folktale, is what it says. So Ukrainian folktale adopted and illustrated by Jane Brett. So that one's definitely a fan favorite with the kids and grown kids as well, if you're like me. My other one is not exactly unique, but I can't resist it. It's one of my all-time favorite stories every year around this time is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. My children being a little older, they are now used to the either live action Jim Carrey movie or the newest animated movie, which came out just a year or two ago with Benedict Cumberbatch as the voice of the Grinch. I guess I'm a purist. I still love the original version the best. I like the just simplicity of a story of a Grinchy person that just doesn't really like the holidays, doesn't like the noise that it comes with and everything, and decides to steal Christmas, and then has that holiday change apart. Spoiler alert, I guess, if you don't know the story of the Grinch, how the Grinch stole Christmas. And I love the book edition. Obviously, you have Dr. Seuss and his particular brand of illustrations as well as rhyming. I like this version because, I mean, I know we're used to thinking of the Grinch as green, but in this particular version, it's all very simple. It's all black and white with these highlights of red and a little bit of like a diluted red. I mean, obviously pink, but I mean, like it's clearly, you know, goes with the red color here. So I like this one because you can focus a little easier to focus on the story itself. I mean, like I said, the movie versions are great, but they get more elaborate and sort of overloaded, and you get these backstories of the character and all these things. And I just really enjoy the simplicity of this particular version of the original version. And I think these illustrations are just absolutely gorgeous. So if you want something to read around Christmas time to some young ones, I definitely recommend, even if they've seen the movies, coming out with the book edition of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I don't have a copy here, but also my kids and I always on Christmas Eve read 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, the little golden book version. That's just become a tradition in our house, so we do that one as well. So moving on to the young adult recommendations. This entire video actually grew out of the fact that last year on Christmas, I read this book, The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. It was one that I had never heard of, and it came across our circulation desk. I was working like I think December 23rd or something like that last year. I think I was working in the evening, and this one came across our circulation desk, and I saw that there was no holds on it or anything like that. So I decided to take it out for something to do while I was home the following couple of days. And I ended up reading this on, well, I started it on Christmas Eve, finished it on Christmas, and read it almost straight through. And so this is, the tagline says, "Every Scrooge deserves a second chance." In this particular book, and also I just think the cover is gorgeous. That just drew me in. Again, the black background with these reds and gold highlights. But so the basic premise of this story is that Holly Chase is a sort of wealthy, privileged young lady who's maybe not acting the best, being the best towards her fellow people. And on Christmas Eve night, she is visited by her stepmother, I think it is, that warns her that she's going to be visited by three ghosts, that, you know, she's not been living the best life, she's not been the most charitable person, and hasn't been the nicest person to other people. So she is going to be visited by these three ghosts, Christmas past, present, and future, that are going to show her the error of her ways. And rather than the traditional Christmas Carol tale where she has that realization that she should be maybe making some changes, instead she goes the other way and thinks, oh, this is all silly, this is a joke, I don't have to take this seriously. And she wakes up on Christmas morning, not changed at all. And shortly after that, some sort of accident happens. I can't quite remember in which she dies. And she becomes the next ghost to present herself to these so-called Scrooges in the future. Meaning, I'm sorry, I'm not being very clear. So she dies, and when she wakes up, she is at this company called Scrooge Inc. or something like that. I can't remember. In which they, her boss, her new boss, is now telling her, "You're dead, and this is basically your penance. You are going to work for us, and we spend all year picking a person to be our next year's Scrooge, learning about their lives, and then helping them in this one night to try to help them turn around their lives." And so the book then follows her for a few years of doing this until that year's Scrooge is a young man about her age that has a very similar set of circumstances, and she maybe starts to have some realizations about the life that she lived. So most of the book takes place as she's dead, hence the title, The Afterlife of Holly Chase. So it was just a very interesting premise. It was a surprisingly cute story, and I really did get drawn into it about this girl, because you think about in this day and age of social media and CGI and special effects, would someone really be all that affected if a supposed ghost or series of ghosts was to show up on Christmas Eve and try to tell them that they've not been living a good life? Or would they maybe not believe it? And then what happens after that? So it was a really cute book. It was a quick read. It's a YA for a young adult, but it was also, I thoroughly enjoyed it as an adult. So I highly recommend, if you want a good feel good Christmas read, The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. We unfortunately do not have this one here at Macedon, but it is in our library system, so you can have it sent to you through our interlibrary loan. The next book that I was going to talk about, it isn't really holiday related, and it isn't even really winter related, so I'm kind of questioning why I grabbed it, but it actually relates to another book I'm going to talk about, which is why this one made me think of winter. This is a brand new book we just got in called Gilded by Marissa. I almost said Melissa. Marissa Mayer. She is also the author of the Lunar Chronicles, which were retellings of fairy tale characters like Cinderella, Rapunzel. But I did not read the Lunar Chronicles. This is my first Marissa Mayer book. This Gilded, which is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. I don't know why, but it does give you that cozy winter feeling, even though I believe it's set in the spring. So, but somehow you still get that feeling though of, oh, well, okay, now I do recall is that the main character, there is a night where she's out for a reason, which I will explain, but she has to lie to the Errol King, the Alder King, this king of the fairies, and tells him she is out under the moonlight in the snow harvesting straw to spin into gold. So it does start in the winter. That's why it was making me think of winter. But so this particular novel, like I said, it is a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin. We start with our main character, Serilda, who has been supposedly either blessed or cursed by a god. So she has some unusual eyes that have what look like golden wheels in them. And what she can do is she's really good at telling stories. And unfortunately, what that does, though, is it's had the unintended side effect of making the people in her town think that she is a liar and therefore untrustworthy. And she's not. She just really likes stories. She likes telling stories to the children in the village, but a lot of times she gets marked as an untrustworthy or lying person unfairly. But then one night, the night of the full moon, she is awoken by some sounds. She sees some woodland folk, so almost like woodland creatures, human, sort of part human, part woodland creature. She sees two of them trying to get into her root cellar to escape the wild hunt, which at this point have just been stories to her. And then she realizes that it's real. So she helps them to hide in her root cellar. And when the dark fairy king, the Earl King, comes along and asks her, what is she doing out here in the middle of the night? She claims that she is harvesting straw to spin into gold because it makes the best material, the under the moonlight. She gets away with it that particular night, but the next full moon, she is brought to the Errol King's castle and forced to spin straw into gold because he clearly realizes he's been lied to. He's not happy about it. So as she's locked away in this room with this impossible task, a boy shows up whose name is Gild, and he does have the ability to spin straw into gold and offers his services for payment. And then it goes on from there. So I'm not actually completely done with this book yet, but it does seem like it is obviously Rumpelstiltskin inspired, but it would appear that the Rumpelstiltskin character, this Gild, is not the villain of the story. And that the Earl King is the villain, and Serilda is this all new character in between. It is very good so far. It has been a very enjoyable read. I'm really interested to see where it goes. I've just discovered that actually it's the first in, I'm not sure if it'll just be a duology. I know there's a second book coming out in 2022. I don't know if that'll be the end of it or if there'll be more after that, but I'm very intrigued. And it's been a nice cozy winter read. So I definitely recommend that. Also, it's been interesting to read, something that's sort of based on that. I don't know if I would, I don't know enough to say exactly where the folklore comes from. I don't know if it's just Slavic folklore, but um, it's been enjoyable to have that sort of different take on it. And in that vein, what made me think of this book is another book that I wanted to recommend that always gives me those cold winter vibes and is a great book to like snuggle up and be warm with, because some of the things that happen in the book are quite cold. And that is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This is another Rumpelstiltskin retelling, but of a different bend. This one is based on Jewish folklore. In this, our main character here, Miriam. Yes, Miriam. I'd forgotten her name. She's the daughter of a money lender. He's not particularly good at his job. He never really goes and collects the money from the neighbors. She understands that their neighbors are definitely taking advantage of them. Her mother is sick. They definitely need to improve their standings. So she, as a teenage girl at the time, decides to take over her father's money lending business and insists that some of her neighbors pay some of the debts that they owe, and their lives start improving. But also, she is quite good at what she does. So it is said that she can spin. I don't know exactly how they put it in here. It says, when an ill-advised boast draws the attention. Oh. Hardening her heart, the young woman sets out to claim what is owed and soon gains a reputation for being able to turn silver into gold. When an ill-advised boast draws the attention of the king of the Stark, grim fey creatures who see more ice than flesh, Miriam's fate and that of two kingdoms will forever be altered. So this is similar to Gilded in that there is a sort of dark fairy king, but in this case, he is both the sort of villain and maybe something else. That he hears that she can, turn non-gold items into gold. So then they have to strike up a bargain. This one takes place in unlike Gilded, which is the seasons, it starts in a winter season and the seasons are changing. This one takes place in very cold climates. So you get that very cold feeling, and you get that, it's one of those books that's nice to be inside a nice, warm, cozy house while you're reading these very, very chilly descriptions of the landscape. So that one, and I also am a big fan of Naomi Novik. I recommend Spinning Silver for a great winter read. Also, I enjoy her other book, Uprooted, as well. So that one's one I would recommend too. In a similar vein, I would also highly recommend The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. This is the beginning of a trilogy. Spinning Silver is a standalone, whereas The Bear and the Nightingale is the beginning of a trilogy. This is based on Russian folklore. Takes place in Russia, in the very cold northern climate. It's similar where it's based on folklore. It's got that almost sort of magical realism that does step into fantasy a little bit, but it is unlike Spinning Silver, which is based in a completely fictional world. The Bear and the Nightingale does take place in Russia, and the events of the story do actually affect the Russian monarchy and the people, the culture and the society of the people living in Russia. Again, it's got that sort of magical, whimsical winter feel. It's also got just some bitterly cold descriptions of the weather, and it's another one that feels very good to be warm and snuggly and cozy while reading this book. So that's another one that if Spinning Silver isn't your thing, because I should mention also that Spinning Silver is a point of view book, so the point of view changes between several characters. If that's not your thing, that was the one thing I found hard, because sometimes I didn't always know who was speaking and I was getting confused at times. But if that's not really your thing, then I would recommend The Bear and the Nightingale, which follows our main character, Vasilisa, as she grows from a child into a young woman, and how the people around her become a little suspicious of her seeming ability to commune with these creatures of nature, which kind of go against the encroaching religion that is becoming more and more popular. It's one of those tales that kind of takes on how the olds being pushed out by a new juggernaut of a religious movement, and how those that cling to the old ways can become sort of pariahs and be pushed out of society. So definitely recommend The Bear and the Nightingale. I particularly enjoy mysteries as well as fantasy and fairy tales. So in a completely different vein, I just finished this book about, I think, last week, and it seemed very timely. I've been going through Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot novels, of which there are, I think, 34, 35, somewhere in there. So I've been going through them, a few every couple of months. This one just seemed like a good one to read this time of year, Hercule Poirot's Christmas. This is a murder mystery that takes place, it begins on Christmas Eve, when an old man who is not particularly beloved by his family members invites them all to his house for Christmas. Some of them thinking, okay, he's elderly, maybe he wants to atone for some of the things from the past, maybe he wants to bury the hatchet. And no, he thinks this is fun, and he thinks that it's entertaining to set his children against each other. And lo and behold, big surprise, he ends up dead. So the question is, who did it? Because there's quite a few suspects, because he wasn't well liked. And Hercule Poirot, who just happens to be visiting a friend nearby, hears of this and ends up investigating the case. So it's not particularly Christmas based. It's just the setting happens to be around Christmas. That's kind of the reason for this elderly man inviting his family members. So that's not the huge thrust of the book, is the Christmas season. It's just a new setting for one of Agatha Christie's murder mysteries. But I certainly enjoyed it. It was a quick read. It was very fast. And I don't have a copy with me, but I was also going to say, because I'd forgotten this, is that I would also recommend Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie, because I had forgotten that story is a closed circuit story, which takes place on a train. And the reason why it's closed circuit on a train is because the train is stopped due to a snowstorm. So you get that claustrophobic, closed-in feel of being trapped with this group of people with this murder mystery going on. That's also one of her most well-known and one of her best. It was the Hercule Poirot novel that I started with. Unfortunately, I already knew the twist, so the twist was ruined for me, but I still enjoyed reading it. So that one I also would probably, even if you're going to pick one, I would probably recommend Murder on the Orient Express a little more than this one, but this one was enjoyable. All right, and last and not least, I did want to talk about a nonfiction that I just finished last night, Wintering by Catherine May. So it is called Wintering: The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times. This book is basically a collection of essays that Catherine May wrote about those times when you need to kind of go into a almost dormant sort of human hibernation period, meaning we put so much of a focus on being happy and healthy and vibrant, and we encourage those traits, and we treasure that in people, and we don't have much recognition for the fact that sometimes being a little low and what some people might even call depressed, in some cases, that is a natural cycle of life. You just like you have the cycles of the season where you have the abundance of spring and summer and even autumn, and then you come back around to the sort of fallow, sleeping, still time of winter. I really needed this book actually, and I didn't even realize it. Especially given the situation we're all living in right now. It's been a very difficult time. It's been very hard to keep up um, optimism or positivity. And I think sometimes we put so much emphasis on being positive and being optimistic at all times. It's seen as a almost like a character flaw if you are not feeling that way. And right now it's nearly impossible to feel that way, especially, for some people are feeling it more than others. And so I really liked reading about someone else's experiences. It was like having a friend, put their hand on your shoulder and say, it's okay. It's okay that you're tired right now. It's okay that you're not feeling your greatest. It's okay that you're not up and bouncy and, oh, it's Christmas and let's all be happy and jolly. Like it's okay sometimes to be stressed. It's okay to be a little low energy, or even just want to kind of go into your little, if you're like me, a blanket cocoon and stay there till March. But so there wasn't an arc. A lot of memoirs or personal nonfiction narratives, they want to follow almost like a storytelling arc, um, where the person is basically their own main character, and something happens, they come across some kind of conflict, they try different things to resolve it, they don't work. You have your sort of low point where it seems like the hero will never prevail, but then they do against all costs. And we even do that a lot in memoirs and in personal narratives, as we try to write things like that, because those are the stories that most of us like to hear. But I actually enjoyed that this didn't do that. At the end, the author is saying, like, yeah, things are going to get better. Like, it's going to be, I'm going to be okay. I know it'll come back around. I'm not there yet. Like, this isn't a how to conquer and overcome. It's to accept that we have these cyclical periods of our life. And just like you have your high points, you have to have your low points as well. And it's okay. And it doesn't mean that you're broken. It doesn't mean that you're failing somehow. So this was just like a warm hug from a friend. It really was. It was something I really needed and really enjoyed. So I do recommend picking up Wintering by Catherine May. That is another one that we unfortunately don't have here at Macedon, but if you want to order it, you can get it through interlibrary loan. All right. On that note, I think I've talked more than enough. I hope you were all having a safe and healthy holiday season. I hope that some of these recommendations give you a little bit of something to look forward to, maybe give you some new ideas of some reading to enjoy as we go into this quiet sort of fallow period where the snow will be coming soon. We'll all be in our houses. It's dark by 5 o'clock or earlier. So hopefully this gave you some ideas. But I think that is all for today. And as I said, I hope you all have a happy and healthy, or at least peaceful and healthy holiday season. And I will see you next time. Bye.